All right, this is Dr. Michael Mueller, and today we're going to chat about brain health, folks. That is what? That's the health of your brain, right? We all know about health of the body. We talk about that a lot on my channel. We talk about exercise. We talk about supplementation. We talk about peptides. We talk about hormone replacement, and we talk about so many other things that help to what, folks? Keep your physical body healthy. Well, beyond the physical body, we have to think about keeping the mind healthy, right? And not just the mind, right? We have several components to who we are. One is the body, one is the mind, and the other is the spirit, right? And keeping the spirit healthy helps keep your body healthy and your mind healthy. But today we're just going to focus on the mind. And the mind or the brain, right, is extremely important, especially since the brain does what, folks? Well, it regulates everything, it controls everything. It is basically the supercomputer, right? It's the workhorse behind everything that occurs in the body. If your brain shuts down, as you know it, folks, we no longer exist, right? The body cannot exist without the brain, and the brain cannot exist without the body. So we have to keep both happy and both healthy if we want to have a healthy brain and if we want to have a healthy body. And even though we all know that exercise is good for the body, I think many people don't realize that exercise is also good for the brain. In fact, data and studies have shown that if you can get exercise a couple days a week, that's going to improve blood flow to the brain. It's going to promote the growth of new brain cells, and it's going to reduce stress on the brain. So if you want your brain to be healthy, folks, it's real simple. You have to keep the temple, right, the body healthy if the brain is going to stay healthy. And that gets us back kind of sort of into the spirit, right? The spiritual aspect of things, because I believe if you keep your spirit healthy and your body healthy, then you'll help to keep your brain healthy. Another important thing to keep the brain healthy, folks, is sleep, right? Now, some of us, and I'm one of those people, we're blessed with pretty solid sleep. I'm able to lay down and get 7 hours or more a night. But some people don't get that deep sleep that they need. And the other day, I was having a problem at my office with my computer, and I'm pretty computer savvy, and I did all the things I normally would do to reset it and get it going. And no matter what I did, it was still a little glitchy. I thought maybe I had a bug in my computer, but nonetheless, I couldn't figure out what was going on. So what did I do? I just shut it off, right? I cut the power to it. I counted to 20 and I turned it back on, and the computer was fixed. Whatever was going awry or whatever wasn't working correctly fixed itself by what? Rebooting it, right? By shutting it off and turning it on again. When we sleep, folks, the brain, your beautiful, gorgeous, and wonderful brain, while you're sleeping, it reboots, it resets, right? When we get to deep sleep, your brain gets rid of everything bad that occurred during the day. It keeps the things that are important. It embraces the beautiful things. It tries to get rid of the hateful things. And it just allows the brain, sleep allows the brain to reset and start over the next day. And when I get people that come into my clinic, and I'm a family physician, I trained at the Mayo Clinic. Remember, nothing here is medical advice. You're not my patient. Most of you aren't my patients. So everything here is really for entertainment and education only. But I'm a family physician with a background in longevity medicine and wellness medicine. And that's why I'm making videos like this, because I'm a big believer in teaching and helping people to get healthier. So we need sleep to reboot, right? And when I get patients that come into my clinic, and if they have a history of anxiety or depression or other mood issues, whenever I try to make them better, I always tell them, let's start by getting you to sleep, by getting you to sleep better or to improve your sleep to get you to deeper sleep. And typically, if you can get somebody sleeping better, that's going to help their mood. If you have an anxious patient, right, and they're anxious and they're stressed and they're overwhelmed and they go to sleep and they wake up repeatedly and they don't get a good night's sleep, they wake up behind the eight ball and they're already stressed. The brain hasn't cleansed itself overnight, and then their anxiety is worse. And when this goes on day in, day on, on and on and on, when this goes on and on and on, and the patient is repeatedly sleep deprived, it's going to make the mood worse, and it's going to make the anxiety worse. And whatever mental health issue you might have is going to be worse if you are sleep deprived. So I always tell patients, a healthy brain, you got to exercise regularly, and you have to get enough sleep. And when I say enough sleep, I mean 8 hours is ideal, but 7 hours or more is probably adequate. Another thing you need to do is you need to feed the brain well, right? Your brain, just like your body, right, doesn't like carbohydrates. It doesn't like sugars. It doesn't like ice cream. It doesn't like cake and cookies and all those terrible things that hurt the body. Because if something hurts the body, it's also hurting the mind, because the two are so intimately related, right? So I want you to live a healthy life, and I want you to eat better. And what should we eat? I always tell patients it's simple, right? You should eat like you live on a farm, right? If you walked out the back door of your farm, okay, you have your chicken, you have your eggs, you have your cows, you have your fish in the ponds, you have your pigs and your other animals, your crops, the things that you can grow. If you lived on a farm and you were eating like you lived on a farm, you would live a healthier life. And that's why I tell patients, eat like you live on a farm. When you go to the grocery store, pretend you're walking out the back door at your farm, and you can only get things that you might find on your farm. And if you do that, you'll typically live a healthier life. On the farm, there's not ice cream growing outside, right? There's not cakes, there's not cookies, there's not candies, there's not all that garbage, processed foods, sugary foods, sodas. None of that garbage would be there, because we're not supposed to be eating that stuff. Carbs are big business, right? They make a lot of money on carbohydrates. They're able to create foods that are carbohydrate based at a very inexpensive price, and then they sell those to us at a high price. So they're very profitable. There's not a lot of a profit margin in broccoli or corn or spinach or beef or whatever, fish. The profit margin there is very slim. So that's not what they want you eating. They want you eating this unhealthy stuff that they make a lot of money on. So if you want to keep your brain healthy, again, exercise regularly, get enough sleep, and have a healthy diet, right? And everybody should start their day with a protein-based breakfast, right? I start every day with 2 eggs and maybe 1 little piece of sausage. I know that may sound like sacrilege for people, but that's a high protein breakfast, and that's going to do good things for my body the rest of the day. Now, that's a topic beyond the scope of what we're discussing today. But if you follow me, if you hit the like button, and if you subscribe to my channel, you'll learn more about how to eat right and why high protein, low carbohydrate diets are really the best way to live. And another thing you need to do to keep the brain healthy, folks, is to manage your stress. And that gets back to the spiritual aspect of who we are, right? We have our body, we have our mind, and we have our spirit. And how do you manage stress? Well, it's simple. You should wake up every day, and you should choose to have a good attitude, right? If I wake up today, let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, my attitude's a 2, right? And 2 would be a bad attitude. 10 would be a great attitude. If I woke up today and I said, well, today I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to treat people well. I'm not going to let things bother me. I'm going to exercise and live well. If I did that today, then most likely I would have a better day, and that would help me to manage my stress. But if I do that today, and I do that tomorrow, and I do that 6 weeks and 6 months from now, then in 6 months or a year, I will have improved my life. And my stress level, right, might go from an attitude, might go from a terrible attitude to a great attitude with less stress. So you do have some say in how much stress you have in your life. So choose not to be stressed, right? Now, that's easier said than done, but we can also do things to counter stress. And I tell patients all the time, I exercise to counter stress. One time my sister said to me, she said, Mike, you've been working out since you were like 11 years old. How do you do it, or why do you do it? And I told her, I do it because of my mind. When I'm stressed or anxious or worried, right? If I've had a busy day at the office and I've had a lot on my shoulders, I'll go home, I'll go for a walk, or I'll go to the gym, right? And when I do that, my body releases things like endorphins and enkephalins, cytokines, all types of wonderful things that not only help me to feel better, but they improve my mood and they decrease my stress. So I tell patients all the time, you need to exercise, you need to walk, you need to meditate, you need to do yoga, because all of these things are not only healthy for your body, but they're healthy for your mind. The other thing is you need to be social. You need to love, folks. Love is such a beautiful thing. And love is simple, folks. It's caring for others. It's being kind to others, especially your family. If you have broken relationships in the family, try to heal those. Be kind to people. Love people. When you give love, when when you're kind to people, that all ends up coming back to you. And interestingly, that improves your health, right? So love people, be kind to people. If you do that, it's going to help your body and it's going to help your mind. Now, the last thing that we're going to discuss today, and we're not touching upon everything on the planet that can help your brain. We're just touching upon a few things today. But another thing that I believe can help the brain tremendously is peptides, right? And a simple multivitamin, number one, everybody should do a multivitamin with minerals. That's one simple thing everyone should do, but there's other supplements and there's other things that can also help the brain. And then there's a class of medications called peptides, okay? And two of the most important peptides for brain health are NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and I've made multiple videos on that, so please check out my videos on NAD. And the other peptide that I like for brain health is Mot-C. Mot-C. Now, I'm going to make a separate video soon on NAD and Mot-C and the effects on brain health. So please follow me, hit the like button and subscribe, and you can watch that video. But again, magnesium is something that's good. The B vitamins are good for the brain, B1, B6, B12. Folate's good for the brain. Fatty acids, omega-3 acids are important for the brain. And interestingly, folks, and I want you to listen closely here, cholesterol is extremely important for the brain. And I'm going to make some separate videos on that. So if you're on a cholesterol medication, folks, don't try to knock that cholesterol down too low, because cholesterol is absolutely essential for brain function and for gee whiz, I need some coffee. Just kidding. Neurologic function around the body. And coffee, folks, I just joked about it, but coffee's actually good for the brain too. That's probably a topic for another day. But they have done studies that show that coffee interacts with the central nervous system. It promotes, attention. It helps with memory, right? It helps with reaction times. It helps with mood. So there is a benefit to coffee because of the caffeine in the coffee, right? I'm not saying go out and drink 10 cups of coffee a day, but I do think, 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 cups of coffee a day is probably a good thing. In fact, if you look at the data, some data shows that drinking coffee can lower your risk for dementia like Alzheimer's, and it may help prevent Parkinson's disease and things like that. But coffee, again, is something that, isn't going to hurt you. And if it helps you feel better when you wake up in the morning, then it's not a bad thing. So vitamins are important, folks. We talked about that, right? We talked about exercise. We talked about all of these things that we can do to keep your brain healthy. But it's real simple, folks. If you want to live a better life, right, you have to keep the body healthy. If you want to live a better life, you have to keep the brain healthy, right? And if you want to live a better life, you have to keep the spiritual self healthy also. So again, all of these things can be accomplished by making good choices, by exercising, by loving people, by being kind to people, and by eating the correct diet and taking the proper supplements. Now, if you'd like, my clinic is in the state of Florida. We're always happy to help people. There are multiple supplements you can take to enhance brain function. There are multiple things you can do to help prevent dementia, to keep your cognitive function as good as you can. But you just need to make sure you see a doctor and go to a clinic and talk to somebody about these things to try to keep your brain health as good as it should be, right? You don't have to let your brain's health decline, right? So many people just accept the fact that as they age, their brain function will decline, and nobody should accept that, because there are things you can do to keep the brain healthy. So that's it, folks. I don't want to go on and on. I'll be back at you soon with another video. I appreciate you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and thanks for your time. Have a good day.